Obviously, Dr. Kohli is here. We're so glad to have you here because it seems like that everybody is on it. We don't know if that's a good thing. Clearly, you're here to kind of like talk us through this. So please, Dr. Kohli, we need some answers, starting with really important. Sorry, I know the prompter's not moving at all. So Erica, go ahead.
Yeah. There we go. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Right. So of course, Ozempic is the diabetic drug that has become so popular. And there's now even a bigger debate about it because people are feeling like there's a shortage. In fact, there is a shortage. The FDA recently issued a warning urging people not to use off-brand versions of the drug. So why is that?
I'm really glad that they issued this warning, guys, because the pandemic created this sort of, environment where it was okay to have a shortage and people were running here and there, Canada, Mexico, compounding pharmacies to try to get their hands on it any which way that they could. And now the FDA is having a number of adverse events rolling in from all the people that got the drug that wasn't made properly. Wow. So when there's an approved version of the drug, don't run around and get something from a compounded pharmacy or online or what have you, because you might be causing more harm than good.
Is that drug cheaper? The off-brand, is that enticing people?
It can be. The availability, the access, the cost, these are all things people use to draw you in, and they say, oh, it's exactly the same thing, when in fact it's not. Now, in emergencies, during shortages, the FDA allows compounding pharmacies to provide these, but there's no supervision as to how they're done. So it's just some guy mixing the stuff in his basement or whatever.
Not some guy.
We just don't know. We just don't know, And so I tell my patients, nothing doing. Unless there's a very specific reason you need to have a custom-made drug at a compounded pharmacy, there's no reason to get it off-label like that.
Well, I also want to speak to what you mentioned before in terms of access, because there are reports that are showing that there's a shortage that's affecting lower income communities, and then they have to travel to the higher income communities just to get their medicine, and oftentimes these are the people who actually need it for diabetes and medical purposes.
That's right. I mean, the haves and the have-nots. This is really highlighting that discrepancy, and the have-nots sometimes need it even more because they have, higher risk of obesity and access to medications. We don't have a solution for this. These expensive branded drugs are for the haves, and the have-nots do have trouble getting it for insurance, for self-pay, for cash, all of that. So we as a medical system have to do better.
So, Dr. Kohli, what's the difference between Ozempic and a new drug called Wegovy?
Nothing. Potato. It's the same medication.
Potato? I guess people do. Okay, sorry.
Tomato. Is that better?
He prefers tomato.
Okay. Yeah. So it's semaglutide. It's the exact same medication. That's in Ozempic. That's in Wegovy. Ozempic was marketed for diabetes at a slightly lower dose. Wegovy, semaglutide, was marketed for obesity at a slightly higher dose. So people think they're using Ozempic, which is a diabetic medication, but if they go and get Wegovy, it is actually a weight loss medication. It's the same medication.
All right, because my wife was on Ozempic, I believe, for a while, and it worked, and she liked it. And then she noticed that it was kind of a different color, and she started using this different brand, and it made her sick. It made her like nauseous, and she had to wean herself off of it, and she no longer uses it. But similar to this story, $1 Million Listing star Tracy Tudor revealed she was on Wegovy for weight loss, but it made her vomit, just like my wife. I don't know if my wife vomited, she just felt nauseous, but she was unable to drink alcohol. My wife she drank more. I'm kidding.
That was because of you.
I'm kidding. You're probably right. You're probably right.
That's funny.
Doc's fitting too good these days.
Yeah, she fits right in.
I'll say, nausea is not really, it's an expected adverse reaction from this medication because it slows down your gastric emptying, so you're expected to feel nauseous. That's not an unreasonable thing that's been reported in the clinical trials. The alcohol thing is kind of interesting, though. It was, we almost discovered it by accident. We weren't looking for it. And people who used Ozempic had less addictive behaviors in general, whether it was alcohol, shopping, smoking, nail biting.
Wow.
It's now being studied for opioid addiction. Now, the FDA...
Can that be applied to all addictions, all across the board?
Even behavioral, she was talking about.
Amazing.
Potentially, yes. And so we haven't done clinical trials looking at people who are addicted and looking at these behaviors. So I think we need those, and those are ongoing. But at least anecdotally, we're learning that it changes the way our brain thinks about cravings.
Wow.
And obesity is complex, right? Some of it is medical, but some of it is behavioral. Your you're addicted to food. You get a reward from the food. And so if this could work on both levels, physiologic to actually make you lose the weight, but also change the way your brain is wired, so you're less craving the food, that would be incredible.
So this miracle drug we're kind of talking about right now, let me ask you this. Let's say you're on it, you're on weight loss. Side effects, what are the downsides, and what about the long term?
Yeah, can you be on it forever if you have an addiction and you're trying to not be addicted anymore?
So nausea is the most common side effect. Some changes in bowel habits, some people get constipated, some get diarrhea, and it can be pretty heavy duty. So, I mean, then that can change your life as well. But in terms of other side effects, it's reasonably well tolerated.
Wow.
Long-term risks, guys, we don't know because it's a new drug. So we know that in animals, there's a potential risk with medullary thyroid cancer. So if you've had that or you have a family history, it's a big no-no. You can't get this medication. We're thinking about this as a chronic disease management medicine, which means just like for your blood pressure or your cholesterol, you don't just get it down and then stop the medicine. You stay on the medicine for the rest of your life. But to me, that raises some questions. One, we do need long-term safety data. We're putting populations on this for the rest of their life. We do need to keep collecting data on this and see what happens after a decade or 2 or 3 decades and so on. Second is the cost. How do we get it to people for the rest of their lives in an affordable fashion, you know? And then the third is if people stop it, are they going to gain the weight back? And what we're seeing is that 2/3 of people that stop it do actually end up gaining the weight back.
Yikes. Okay. There's another one that people are calling like the organic Ozempic. It's called berberine. What is this? Is it safe? Tell us about
This
it.
is excellent marketing. I love it. I mean, just berberine or whoever makes it has jumped on this Ozempic bandwagon. So let's talk about it. The efficacy shows us that maybe under the right circumstances, you can lose a little bit of weight. It can help a little bit with your insulin sensitivity. So it sort of works in the same way. It's a plant derivative.
Berberine?
It's a supplement, berberine.
So it sounds like Burberry, doesn't it? I'm picturing
Berberine.
Right,
Yeah,
berberine.
did not come out with an Ozempic.
Okay.
Like pill.
It'd be smart.
That would be even cleverer marketing. Then you could mark it up $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because
it's the fancy version for the Beverly Hills.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that the efficacy data is that compelling. Like it's a plant supplement, and in general, doctors advise against supplements because they cause more harm than good. We don't know anything about the safety. We know that berberine makes you nauseous, just like Ozempic does. In animal models, it can cause enlargement of the liver and affect other organs as well. And so you're taking this over-the-counter stuff that's been manufactured under sketchy circumstances where you don't know that there's no regulation, and it may interact with your other medicines and may cause more harm than good. So don't go for nature's Ozempic, even if berberine makes
Nature.
it.
Okay.
Full circle. Good job, Dr. Kohli. Thank you for all that information. Very important to our viewers. Dr. Kohli has a podcast. Check out Heart of Medicine wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again, Dr. Kohli.
Thank you.